Hey YouTube gun people. It's a nice day today here in Boston. It's snowing, it's wicked cold out, so I thought I'd get up, reload some 45 ACP. And the other thing I wanted to do is talk to you about Massachusetts gun laws. I get a lot of comments about, because I post videos on dilemmas regarding getting different guns in Massachusetts, and people are always asking, well, why is that? Why are your laws so stupid? They're that stupid because they're Massachusetts kind of put together by I believe, a largely corrupt political system. I mean, then we had like the last, how many speakers of the House of Massachusetts and convicted on felony violations. What was it like? DeMacy, Finneran. I mean, Jesus, how many more do you want than that? That's pretty good. I think but it's been more than that, right? Anyway, so let me explain to you Massachusetts gun laws. So Massachusetts has an approved firearms roster, okay? So it's kind of a lot like California in that, right on the money. It's a lot like California in terms of regulations of what you need to have on the handgun, okay? Or pretty much any gun. So it has to make all the assault weapons bans, ban compliances. The other issues are for handgun, it needs to pass a drop test. Okay. It needs to have a serial number on the frame. I think it also needs a hidden serial number. Feel free to correct me, I'm sure you will. And then needs a loaded chamber indicator. And the barrel length needs to not be too small. That kind of stuff. So your kind of standard state sponsored rules about what constitutes a safe handgun or a safety standard, manufacturing standard, and of course they can't have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds in Massachusetts, unless it was built before 1998. Now, how does that make any sense? I mean, I don't even understand. I don't even understand how that makes sense. So I can have a 100-round magazine for my whatever, as long as it was made before 1998, but I can't get a new one. So the idea is eventually all those magazines will wear out, and then you won't have any left. Ridiculous. Anyway, so but on top of the state regs, so the state regs, in all things considered, are relatively okay in that most modern gun manufacturers can meet those. The problem comes from the Attorney General's office. Without getting into the real legalities of it, I'll try to give you the everyday gun buyer's dilemma resulting from the Attorney General's regulations. So the Attorney General's office, I think this started under Tom Riley and then continued under Martha Coakley. There are a set of regulations that are kind of a moving target for gun manufacturers to meet to satisfy consumer protection laws. See, the Attorney General's office can't make a law. They can just come up with regulations. They came up with a bunch of regulations that they can just change anytime they want because they're not a law. It doesn't require any amendment to the Massachusetts legal system. You can just willy-nilly, overnight, say, oh yeah, now you need to do that too. And just a few years ago, they had an issue like that arise with Glock. Made a Massachusetts compliant model. You also need a loaded chamber indicator. I think I mentioned that. And I believe the controversy was related to what Glock considered a loaded chamber indicator, and was in fact approved as a loaded chamber indicator, which is basically the extractor protruding out of the slide a little bit, and you can run your finger over it and know if it's loaded or not. Now I know a lot of people on YouTube, shockingly enough, get into this debate, oh, is that a loaded chamber indicator? You know what? They're all the guns are friggin' loaded. Stop. Just treat them like they're all loaded. You don't even need a loaded chamber indicator. They're always loaded. They're always loaded. You get it? These absolute rules really, or ways of thinking about things, really make things less complicated. Anyway, so Glock made a model. They started selling them in Massachusetts. Everybody was happy. Yay, we can buy Glocks in Massachusetts. Only for the Attorney General's office to say, no, and they started squawking to Glock. And what happened is Glock actually took the route of instead of really fighting that nonsense, they just said, fine, we'll buy back every gun. So if you were a dealer in Massachusetts and you sold a Glock handgun during that time period, you had to contact the buyer and retrieve it, get it back. So Glock got stuck with some used firearms. They were unhappy. They felt like they got screwed. They certainly did. And the Massachusetts consumer got screwed. So it's really a big problem in Massachusetts where, by the way, gun sales and firearm sports are alive and well here, contrary to what you may have heard. Gets screwed mostly by the Attorney General's office. Not so much state regs, although they have their own problems. I don't think our state regulations are as bad as New York State. I don't think they're as bad as California. But the Attorney General's office is really the crux of the problem, in my opinion. And so, what can you do about it? What's really the solution? I really think the solution is that we need to, there is a gun community, smarten up and start really realizing that what happens in a state like Massachusetts, and other states of course, really sets a precedent for what can happen anywhere else. Believe it or not, that's true. Should encourage gun manufacturers to make those mass-compliant weapons, firearms. I don't know if you call it a firearm or a weapon. I really don't. Depends which one it is. More people that are able to buy them, and believe me, people buy them like crazy in Massachusetts. And there's actually gun shops, local gun shops I know for a fact, have publicly stated that, hey, if you make a mass-compliant gun, we'll help you defray the cost of the submission test. So you have to submit a few firearms, they undergo all these safety tests, and they can get put on the roster. This is particularly easy in sort of the world of the 1911, where, let's face it, folks. After 100 years of practice, people know how to build a 1911 pretty well, and you can without too much problems figure out how to make a 1911 that will pass everybody's testing requirements. Once in a while, just as a side note here, you get crap that comes out of, it's either polishing media or it's crap that comes out of the primer, the black resin from that sulfonic salt that you use or lead salt that you use to detonate the primer. It gets in there and you don't want it affecting your sealing of your primer or denting your primer. Anyway, 1911 has been made for a long time. There's no reason why every manufacturer that is, serious can't make a mass compliant firearm. And I think when manufacturers take this arrogant tone of we're not even going to deal with Massachusetts, you just abandoned a huge population of people, a fairly large population of people, I would say, that have been and will continue to be loyal supporters of your company and your product. And I think, shame on you. Shame on you. If you sit there and say the Massachusetts market's too small, really, well, what happens when the Attorney General's office in New York does that, and then the Attorney General's office in Connecticut, and the Attorney General's office in, forget about New Jersey, the Attorney General's office has already done worse things in New Jersey, and so on and so forth, and it just trickles through the U.S. What are you going to do then, right? Where's that going to leave us? It's going to leave us in a pile of poop where, the failure to act in one state set a precedence for people that are anti-gun. Now, I can tell you for a fact that in my state, crime is relatively low except for in a few known bad areas. The police, politicians, everybody knows that these are bad areas. It's a failure of government. It's not because somebody can go out and buy a 1911. Everything that gun control wants to do is already illegal. You don't need any more rules. You just need to enforce what you have. You think about it, in Woburn, Massachusetts, this maniac killer was serving three life sentences. Last year he was out on parole. Imagine that. What about life sentence didn't the parole board get? Robbed a jewelry store and in the process killed a cop. Find out that the parole board, remember I mentioned corrupt Massachusetts politics? Parole board, a bunch of flunkies that were appointed as sort of, I guess, political favors, or through the process art of nepotism. And so they had all these nice cushy jobs, and oh, it's not his fault he killed people. He's a victim of society. Bullshit. You're not a victim of anything. You're a victim of your own bad choices. Blame other people. I love that. I love that when people start blaming other people. One of the most liberal cities in America is Cambridge, Massachusetts. These people are friggin'. They've been doctor shopping a bit too much, and they're kind of on a few too many meds, if you know what I'm saying. They drive around their goddamn Prius like they, are God's chosen ones. We care about the environment. We care about the environment. Then they live in a 6,000 square foot house with at night is completely illuminated. There's not a piece of blade of grass unlit on the entire property. They have watering systems to water their lawn. They have people coming in to cut the grass that may be undocumented, shockingly enough, and they have the nerve to tell you about being environmentally sound. These are the same people that strongly influence Massachusetts politics. Why? Money. Money. Let me leave you with this thought. This is a political rambling, started off, but this is what it is. And if you don't like political rambling, go watch something else. Really, goddamn YouTube. You write in read the description to a video. You write in the description, political rant, warning, okay? And people say, "Oh, I thought I was gonna watch a gun video." Go back to like, first grade and, learn how to read with your ABC and phonics books. For sakes. Money, not only in politics, can be very corruptive. we're in a state of the economy now where people are unemployed. Unemployment's like almost 10% in Massachusetts. But Elizabeth Warren, who's running as a Democrat, Harvard professor, yay, just what we need, a Harvard professor, state senator for Massachusetts. That's awesome. No political experience, by the way. I'm sure she's a fine lady. She raised in about a month to run against Scott Brown. Now, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't feel that way. It's not get all personal about it. She raised $3.5 million in about a month for her political campaign. What's wrong with this picture? Didn't Obama recently raise like over $100 million? There's people protesting. There's people out of work for a long time. I mean talented people out of work. People are losing their houses, sometimes not because of any fault of your own. I think if you went out and bought a raised ranch in some wealthy community for $800,000 on a quarter of acre land, then you're fucking stupid. You deserve to lose your house. That's called, in my opinion, stupidity tax. But in the face of everything going on, fat cat politicians are raising millions and millions and millions of dollars. What's wrong with that picture? Doesn't seem to jive with me. People are out of work, you know. Federal government's a disaster. Fucking disaster. Disaster. We've now become, regardless of what your political affiliation is, the way the country used to work is that even if you were a Republican, Democrat, conservative, moderate, liberal, you could come together and have a discussion about setting ideology aside, about what's actually good for the country and make that decision. Now we're just a bunch of ideology weirdos that in my opinion are no different than fundamentalists anywhere. You basically become fundamentalists, right? True believers. True believers. American politics has stooped to the level of having somebody like Michelle Bachmann as a potentially viable candidate, or Kane. The only person more surprised, you know, that guy thought he was out on a book tour, and he wound up running for president. You know, it's like kind of a joke. Hey, honey, guess what happened on my book tour? I wound up running for president. You know, only person more surprised than all of us is him. National sales tax. You want a national sales tax? So you go out, and next time you go out and buy your buy your reloading components, on top of the 6.5% sales tax we have in Massachusetts, thanks to Deval Patrick. Thanks to Deval, raised it from 5% to 6.5%. We did. We're going to have a 9% tax on top of that. We'll become just like European countries, where the taxes are so high you can't afford to buy shit. You really can't. And that's really good for the economy, right? That's really good. And you know, the other thing that really irks me is flat out vote buying. I mean, since when did we become a country where you can give tax breaks or loan forgiveness programs curiously close to election time to people? Now, I'm all for, I agree, student loans are really, really quite expensive. They can be, but you know, for God's sakes, you knew what you were getting into. I mean, if you went to Northeastern University and you're, you know, some girls on the TV the other day, on the news at the Occupy Boston thing. I mean, I don't care, occupy anything you want, but Occupy Boston movement saying, well, I'm a senior at Northeastern University. It's a really good school. And I'm going to owe $150,000 in student loans. You know what? Read the documents before you sign them, honey. Nobody forced you to go to Northeastern. Maybe you should have tried to go to a state school. It was a lot less expensive. I mean, cry me a fucking river. You know, how should I feel bad for you? Really? You know, take some personal responsibility. So now Obama, we're going to restructure your loan, basically. We're going to buy a vote from you, young people. Yes, and remember, when it's election time, you come and vote for me. Because after all, Big Daddy Barack basically helped forgive your loan. Yep. You don't need to pay that big loan to the man. I'm going to redo it for you. Because I'm down with you. I'm down. Can you imagine that? Oh well, I can go on all day about this stuff, but I shall spare you. I'm out.